Hey everyone, the name is Kris Barocsi, and this might be the most important video I've ever made, which says a lot about all the other videos that I've made. This is gonna be a dictionary for all the guitar player terms describing guitar tones, like all the adjectives that we use, right? Woody, scooped, airy, whatever the hell. This is gonna be that video explaining all those terms and showing them on a guitar. And of course, this is all very subjective. So if you have a different explanation for whichever adjective that I cover, let me know in the comments below. And now let's get into the first word, which is open. It's a subtle term that describes a certain type and a certain amount of presence or treble. It shouldn't be too treble heavy, because then I would not say it's open. I use other terms or adjectives. It has to have the right amount of very pleasant, sort of well-balanced treble. Scooped. It's a guitar sound where the guitar player mid-range, which is around 800 to 1200 hertz, gets reduced radically. That's usually where you remove the mid-range of your guitar sound to sound mean and heavy, and usually closer to like a metal guitar sound, usually like an old school metal guitar sound. This is how it sounds like. Rich. For this one, I will obviously have to use the king of tone. Rich, get it? A very good alternative adjective to rich would be full. It's about rich in frequencies, full of frequencies. It's a well-rounded, full tone that is not too dark at all. It's not like full of low end, etc. It's just something that has a very good amount of every pleasant frequency in a guitar tone. Airy. Now this one is interesting. Airiness is something that has to do a lot with the dynamics and how the guitar and the guitar tone reacts to your playing dynamics. So I call a guitar tone airy if I can just barely touch the string and it doesn't sound muffled at all. It's very lightweight, very open, screams for a reverb or something like that. Like. And if you dig in, it doesn't get darker or anything. It keeps that airiness, this lightweight tone. Honky mid-range, or like a cocked wah style mid-range. That is something that is like, in a way, like a cocked wah. It's a narrow boost for that mid-range. This can be awesome and the perfect sound, or this can be very annoying and the worst thing you can imagine. So it's a very taste thing, but a honky mid-range, something like a cocked wah kind of mid-range, it's unique. It's awesome. tight. Now that is something that will usually describe the way your guitar sound reacts and the kind of gain reacts to your palm muting. Usually not only palm muting, but it's closely related to that. So when you put the edge of your palm on the string right at the bridge, okay, that's what mutes the string. And then you pick it. That is a tight sound, which means that right after that initial attack, that jug, it stops. It doesn't just mud out. It doesn't have like a slow reaction. It's quick. It's almost like a staccato tone. It's just a jug, jug. That is tight. Muddy. Now that is the exact opposite of tight, which makes a lot of sense if you think about that word, that adjective. What happens to you when you try to walk in mud? Your feet get stuck in it. It's kind of slow and like, that's exactly what happens here. If you have a muddy guitar tone, your palm mutes will not mute at all, and the whole guitar sound just becomes much less articulate. I will use the same piece of gear, the same pedal that I used just a minute ago for tight, just because I want to show that it's not only about the gear. You can set up stuff to sound very differently. Muffled, which is a guitar sound that lacks treble. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Muffled can describe a really cool fuzz face type fuzz tone, but you have to know how to use it, how to make that sound awesome in a song. Usually it just literally describes the lack of presence or lack of treble. Mid-hump. That describes that upper mid-range boost that, for example, Tube Screamers or the Boss OD1, the SD1, all those sort of overdrive circuits bump up. That is something that is very recognizable. You'll have a lot of that sort of sweet upper mid-range and not a lot of treble or low end. Woody. This is one of my favorites because it sounds funny to say it, because we have an electric guitar with metal strings. What should sound woody in that constellation, right? Even the frets are metal. It's like, what? Just listen to the palm muted notes. This is a clean sound, the Tele going into the Imperial Mark II. It sounds like metal strings, right? Imagine knocking on wood, on a plank of wood. It's about the peak of that palm muted pick. It's not too high, not in the realm, like treble realm of something that sounds metallic or super treble heavy or anything like that. It does have that upper mid-range clunk that is just enough dark to sound woody. sweet. Now that is hard to explain because it can mean so many things. It can just mean that you really like it. It's just sweet. I love it. I dig it. Whatever. But also, in my dictionary, sweet means that it has a really nice and balanced tone, but it has a bit more sparkle or edge, like treble, to the sound, without being harsh at all. So for me, sweet is something that is more on the trebly side than on the warmer side, and definitely does not have any of the unpleasant, sort of scratchy, annoying treble. Warm, which is quite easy to explain. It's exactly how it feels to be warm. That is how a warm guitar sound should feel like. Lots of low mids, lots of low end, not a lot of upper mids and treble. Transparent. Whether we're talking about an overdrive sound coming from an amp or an overdrive pedal or anything else that changes something about your tone, if it says it's transparent, it shouldn't change the EQ and the character of your guitar sound too much. It should just add its thing to it. So if it's an overdrive pedal, then it should just distort your sound without changing the type of mid-range, the amount of treble or bass that comes from your rig, the rest of the rig. Sterile or cold kind of means the same thing. We're talking about a lack of sweetness, lack of mid-range usually, lack of soulful warmth. So it's really about the mid-range, the lack of a nice and pleasing mid-range. The best and only playing example I can show you is something that I've played in another video that came out a few weeks ago. It's me playing a double humbucker guitar coil split mode into plugins instead of using my regular rig. Crisp or sparkly, those kind of mean the same thing. It's about a right amount of treble or presence, a lot of presence actually. It should not be too crazy because then it becomes shrill and annoying and just painful to listen to. A nice and crisp guitar tone has a lot of that bite, a lot of that, especially with single coils. It's going to be really obvious to hear that that is a nice and sparkly guitar tone. And last but not least, nasty. Nasty is usually a good word, even though in like real life, nasty doesn't necessarily mean something that you like. Now this can refer to two different things. One is just a very cool sort of rock to metal kind of rock sound, like a high gain sound. And the other version could be like a proper nasty sound, an uncontrolled a sound that freaks out, that falls apart, usually a fuzz or like an amp that's about to explode, that kind of uncontrolled, nasty, pretty sound. That was more than enough for just one video. If you want to hear some more, I have a long list here for a part 2, a possible part 2 in case you want one. Let me know in the comments below. I have words like chewy, or clear, thin, boomy, brown sound, woman tone, mellow, balanced, juicy, flat, artificial. If you're interested in that, let me know in the comments below that you want to see a part 2. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Of course, give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and check out my merch if you want to support what I'm doing. Until then, bye-bye.